Will Texas not taking offensive linemen for 2025 actually pay off for them long term and in 2026?
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Locked On Crossover with Locked On the Portal and Locked On Longhorns. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making each of Locked On Longhorns and Locked On the Portal a part of your day each and every day right here on the nation's #1 podcasting network, Locked On. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Just download the app today. We're going to be talking about how Texas probably isn't going to make the playoff this year. But with everything that has happened this season, Arch getting seasoning, the offensive line, and a whole bunch of players coming back, yes, believe it, Texas is probably going to be consideration for top 5 status in 2026. We're going to talk about getting that game against A&M and utilizing it as a springboard into 2026 in a bowl game. If they beat the Aggies, it is a big deal for Steve Sarkisian and the entire Longhorns program. But the number one thing we need to talk about is getting help for Arch through the portal and how they didn't last year and probably will right now for this offseason, offensive line, et cetera. And of course, Arch is ascending. He's doing a lot better. Why this team is probably going to get a lot better in the offseason. To help me do that, Brad Kellner, Locked On Longhorns. Like, look, man, this is a really unique team because I picked them number 1. Obviously, I missed. I think about everybody missed in some capacity. The offensive line, we were talking about this off air, didn't take anybody. You lost your left tackle, kind of like LSU. When you lose a left tackle a year early, it's usually not good. Like, it's very, very difficult. I don't know if they would have rethought it, but it's not like there are a ton of left tackles in the portal anyway. Definitely not anything like what Texas had. So my question to you, Brad, looking back at this, is this just inevitable? Like they would have just got somebody that's okay. Goosby's a good player. He's getting better. He's got another year. Is this the best outcome by accident because you get all the experience this year, and then next year you got everybody back? Am I missing something? What do you think?
Talking about the offensive line at the University of Texas in 2025 can be described as best outcome. I mean, it's been the worst part of this football team pretty much from game one. And they've tried a bunch of different combinations too to try to figure something out. And it's gotten a little better as the year has progressed. But I mean, we saw it just a couple of weeks ago against Georgia. Texas just got manhandled. So when they go up against elite competition, they just don't have the personnel up front to hang. So yeah, that is a big priority for Texas in the offseason. Steve Sarkisian and Longhorns offensive line coach Kyle Flood, they bet on themselves, right? Texas lost 80% of its starting offensive line from last year's college football playoff team. Instead of going out in the portal, they just banked on their younger guys who they had recruited out of high school to develop and be ready to go as a good enough starting 5 to compete in the SEC. It just hasn't happened. So yeah, offseason priority number 1 for the Texas Longhorns without question is finding ways to fix up that offensive line because it has been a major, major issue all season long.
How many do you think they need to take in this offseason?
It's a great question. I would say at least 2. And when I say 2, I don't mean like a starter and a backup. I mean, they need multiple starters if they can get them.
Oh,
and I
wow.
realize those
That's
guys
hard.
are hard to find in the portal. And I realize they carry a very significant price tag. And obviously, Texas won't be the only blue blood type of program in need of an offensive lineman this offseason. But I really do think the Longhorns need multiple starters up front. They'll get 3 of their 5 starters back on the offensive line. I think the tackles are good, especially if Trevor Goosby comes back for another year. He is draft eligible, but I think it'd be in his best interest to come back to Austin for one more season to try to improve his draft stock because I think he could be a first-round pick in 2027. Brandon Baker at right tackle, the former 5-star from the state of California. Sluggish start to his first season as a starter, but he's gotten better as this year has gone along. So I think Texas is probably okay at tackle, but man, that interior of the offensive line, it's been an issue. And the one guy who has been good, DJ Campbell, the starting right guard, he's gone. He's out of eligibility after this year. So that's probably the area of the offensive line that Texas really needs to attack the most.
Well, the good news here, Brad, interior lineman A, less expensive, and B, more common. The bad news is it's still about assimilating into the offense. You're still guessing. And you got to worry about how that goes with your depth chart, with your roster. And I mean, there's a lot of different iffiness, if you will, with bringing in portal guys. But doesn't sound like to me that Mr. Brad Kellner is all that excited about the opportunity for somebody just sliding in after they tried it this year. And it obviously hasn't worked out anywhere near Texas standards, at least. So let me ask you, besides O-line, do they need another receiver? What position or positions do they still need? Because, again, this could be a top 5 team next year, but these are very important pieces to put into play.
Yeah, I think I'd put running back right behind offensive line as the biggest offseason need for Texas. Now, the Longhorns do have a 5-star in Derek Cooper committed in this 2026 class, but relying on a true freshman is always scary to me. I think he has the chance to be a great college player, but you don't want to throw him into the fire, again, with a team that could be preseason top 5 next season. So, Brian, this is the worst Texas rushing offense since 1944. Like, the Longhorns entered this season as the only SEC team with a returning 1,000-yard rusher in Trey Wisner. He has not had a great year. Now, Texas got a couple of guys back from injury who missed all of 2024. They just don't look ready, and they haven't looked ready all season long. The Longhorns also lost Jarrett Gibson mid-season to the transfer portal. So that's another area. Like, this is the worst run game in the SEC. It's the worst running game Texas has had since the World War II era. Like, they cannot just okay, yeah, let's get a couple of offensive linemen. That'll fix everything. Ryan, you think about Texas, man. I mean, Earl and Ricky and Cedric Benson and Jamal Charles and Steve Wooster and Roosevelt Leaks for some of the old heads out there. So many great running backs. Bijan Robinson for you young cats out there. Texas doesn't have anybody close to that level right now. So I would say O-line 1, running back 2 as the top areas of need for Texas in the portal.
One receiver, just got to get a guy. Is that fair?
They could, yeah. I think it's fair. You know, they got Emmett Mosley from Stanford, and, I think Texas' passing game early on was hampered by the fact that Mosley missed the first month of the year, got hurt in the first week of fall camp, so couldn't practice, then missed the first month of games. So it kind of took him a while to assimilate in the offense. Texas's top 4 receivers will all be back next year, and they also brought in the number 1 wide receiver recruiting class, I guess number 1 recruiting class overall, but the number 1 receiver recruiting class in 2025, this most recent cycle. Now, we haven't seen Dalen McCutcheon, Khalil Lockett, Jamie French, Michael Terry, those guys play a lot. You got a couple of 5-stars in there and a couple of high 4-stars in there. So I would like to see, Texas got Adonai Mitchell, bunch of success with him. Texas brought in Matthew Golden, a bunch of success with him. So I would not be opposed if Texas does bring in one more difference maker on the outside. But I don't think that's as high of a need as some other areas on this team are going to be.
Yeah, I just think with Arch rising, and what's kind of transition to that here in just a second, if they add one more guy that can stretch the defense, obviously you've got one guy that, he shot out of a cannon. The running back room is inevitably going to get better. Just by health. I hope Cedric gets healthy. He's a guy I know. He's just had a rough go of it, man. That guy's an animal.
Yeah.
But, Wisner and everybody, like the O-line's got to get better. If you can stretch the field, the offensive line, they've got an easier go of it because right now there's an extra safety in the box because they don't respect the passing game as much as they should. But it's at least getting better. And now that the running game, they can just blitz and do whatever they want. They can play all kinds of line games because they don't trust them. If that O-line gets a little healthier, gets a little more experience, add a couple guys, and you get one deep threat for Arch, they could be explosive again. It could be what they thought, you and I included, was going to happen in 2025. So let's talk about that next. Just how good is Arch going to be this next season? That is next on Locked On Longhorns and the Portal. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA is back. There's no better place to get in the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making a late push. Brad, I hope whatever NBA team you follow is a million times better than my Pacers because last I checked, they didn't have a road win yet. The only team in the NBA. So whatever you do not bet on the Pacers. They are terrible. But right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com, sign up, and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you once again for making Locked On Longhorns and Locked On the Portal a part of your day each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Become an everydayer and subscribe to each of our pods. Arch has gotten way better, Brad. Like, it's pretty blatantly obvious, even to a novice, that the light is starting to get a little brighter. He's seeing things better. It's not too late. And like, he was seeing ghosts there for a while because the O-line, as you noted, was terrible. They've gotten better, so he's able to step on the pocket, and he just has more time to throw. That's part of it. But he's also looking more mature on when he throws deep. Like that, the end of the game against Mississippi State, a lot of ways State screwed themselves, but like the throw that he made, the deep ball to the end zone to get him rolling, to get the comeback, like those throws don't just happen. You got to know what you're doing, and that was as good a throw as you're going to see at any level. We're starting to see more of that. What do you see from him in terms of his comfort, like his body language and all that? Because like physically, we've always known he's had the tools. What do you see from Arch?
Experience matters, right? And I think the fact that Arch's last name is Manning broke people's brains for a long time. And I think it's still
It did.
breaking people's brains. I mean, obviously, in the offseason, Arch Manning was overhyped. I thought he'd be better than he was at the start of the season. But me, as a Texas grad and lifelong Longhorn fan, I'm like, dude, this guy's not going to win the Heisman. Like, what are we doing here? Let's tap the brakes on all of this hype and expectation. And then Arch Manning got off to a horrible start. And a lot of people are like, this guy sucks. He was called college football's first flop, and I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, experience matters. Arch Manning, yes, he's in his third year of college football. I think that's why a lot of people expected him to be good right out of the gate, but he hadn't played a whole lot of meaningful snaps at this level before this season. So just like every other quarterback who's ever picked up a football, yeah, getting more reps has definitely helped. And you're right, he just looks way more comfortable out there. The internal clock has slowed down, Brian. That's the biggest difference. He looked so rushed early on, even when he was given a clean pocket. And you're right, the offensive line woes definitely sped up that clock for him. But even in times where he did get a clean pocket and enough time to throw the football, he just looked panicked and fidgety at times, and it affected his accuracy, his decision making, pretty much everything. You could tell the game is slowing down for him. He can make those quick throws, but he can also extend plays with his legs and find his second, third, fourth, even fifth reads from time to time. So, yeah, he looks like a completely different guy than the guy we saw in the first month of the year. And obviously for Texas fans, look, we hope the progression continues against Texas A&M, but the hope is into 2026 that Arch Manning can take another step and kind of put together a full season of doing what we've seen him do down the stretch in year one.
Well, next year they've got LSU on the road. They've got Tennessee on the road. So you got, the schedule kind of flips, and you still have A&M. That's a road game. You got OU in the. That's a game I got to see eventually. That's one of my bucket list games to go to, the Cotton Bowl. That's a cool game. I need to go to that. They're going to need him to take that step forward. But that's why I led with this stuff about the O-line and all that, because it's not the Arch Manning show. This is still the world's greatest team sport. It is not the Arch Mannings taking the field at Darrell Royal Stadium. You know what I'm saying? It's University of Texas. People forget that too. How much does he need to improve for this team to be a contender / top 5 team preseason next year? Like, what does he need to do to get better, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I just think more reps, more experience. I think, there's still some inaccuracies at times, especially throws over the middle of the football field that I think can improve. But I'm just excited to see Arch Manning with a competent running game and with more clean pockets. I mean, I think that's going to make life so much easier for him. You look at some of the recent national champions in college football, Brian. Nobody thought Will Howard was the best quarterback in America last year. Nobody thought J.J. McCarthy was the best quarterback in America a couple of years ago for Michigan, right? Those guys were obviously good. I don't want to take a shot at them or make it sound like I'm taking a shot at them, but I don't think Arch Manning needs to win the Heisman for this Texas football team to get back to where they've been the last couple of seasons. So, yeah, of course, there's areas where he can get better. Still working on the mechanics at times, still working on the accuracy at times, but yeah, again, it's seeing what he's done as of late with so much shakiness from the other 10 guys on the offensive side of the football. It's hard to not be excited about, okay, where he can take his game to if the guys around him can elevate a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's the way it is. It's a little bit of both. Yeah, Arch needs to get better. And with the reps, I think that's important. I think the biggest step he'll make is the stuff that people that look for action aren't going to notice. Pre-snap reads, protections, making sure he's got the right setup and not walking into a blitz and getting hammered. the negative plays are probably going to go down. Texas will be in a lot more manageable second downs, and 2nd and 4 never goes out of style. So I think that's a big part of it. So running back room will be better by default, I would imagine, just by health. O-line should be better. Receivers healthier, hopefully, and they're going to be more experienced too. So I have a hard time seeing Texas as a team that's not in the top 20 in scoring next year, just because they have a lot of guys. Now, the tight end that came over from Cal, is he done? He's done, isn't he?
He's back for another year. Jack injuries, and yeah, he hasn't had the year that I think any Texas fan would have wanted him to have. He hasn't had the year that Jack injuries himself would have wanted him to have. I think the initial plan was for him to be a one and done guy, but he can come back for another season. And again, considering the stats and the eye test just haven't quite been where he would have liked, I would expect injuries to be back here for one more season.
Well, to that end, we're going to talk about Texas hosting the Aggies and the playoffs. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that most Texas fans would like nothing more than to bounce the Aggies outside of any chance to get a top 4 seed. We're going to talk about this next on this crossover, Locked on the Horns and Locked on the Portal. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. College football is as exciting as ever. Texas and everybody else got all these different things going on with the portal, the actual season ending with the Aggies. Getting tickets to that game with the Aggies, by the way, even though it's a great time to tailgates and everything, getting tickets can be a little bit more difficult than actually the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping out at you at checkout. That's why I use Gametime, and you should as well. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets, score the best prices, no surprise fees. What you see is what you get. To that end, I just recently bought 2 tickets off Gametime to go see my alma mater play basketball, and I was in and out in 5 minutes, and I did all of the following. Found the team I wanted, found the game I wanted, could see my seat view right there on my phone because from your seat, you can see the court. And on top of that, I put in my credit card information all in 5 minutes on Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Gametime app today. All right, let's talk Aggies. I'm sure that you probably dislike Texas A&M because you're a Texas fan and all that stuff. But this year's been a little bit weird. The Aggies were projected to be good, but nobody really knew what they were going to get. They were one of the harder teams to peg. Texas was considered the more sure bet. I even had them number 1. I missed. But so did about 98% of the people in the land outside of Aggie land who would never rank them number 1 no matter what. Do you think that this game is going to be won in any particular way? Because Texas is definitely trending in the right direction. And what do they have to do to run the Aggies' undefeated season? What do you see, Brad?
The more physical team is going to win this football game. And, at times, I know we've spent a lot of this episode talking about how bad Texas has been on the offensive line, but you look at the Longhorns win over Oklahoma in Dallas a few months ago. You look what Texas was able to do when they beat top 10 Vanderbilt in Austin a few weeks ago. There have been moments where the Longhorns have been able to run the ball really good in the trenches. The Texas defensive line has been pretty salty all season long. I think every Longhorn fan is pretty confident that they're going to be able to hold up their end of the bargain. But for Texas, can the offensive line, number 1, establish some semblance of a running game? Last year in the Longhorns win at Kyle Field, Texas ran it for nearly 250 yards as a team. They outgained A&M on the ground by 150. Like, boom, there's your difference in the ball game right there. This Texas rushing offense, they're not capable of going for 250. Can they get to 150? That's what Texas is looking for. And, for A&M's been the best third down defense in America by a wide margin all season long. So you talked about it earlier, Brian. You said 2nd and 4 is always a friend. It will be a best friend for Texas on Friday. You cannot be behind the chains against Texas A&M. Cassius Howell in that pass rush is just too good. Mike Elko is a freaking mastermind. He was back as a DC at Notre Dame. We saw it at Duke, and now we're seeing it at A&M. He is a great third down schemer. So for Texas, you can't live, and even third and medium, like third and long, you might as well trot the punt team out on the field on third down. You got no shot. But if you're Texas, you've got to stay ahead of the chains. Obviously, getting the ground game going a little bit can help with that. So that, I think, is the biggest key for the Longhorns to pull off what would be a minor upset, according to our friends at FanDuel.
Yeah, I think the first down plays are everything. And to that end, I just want to add to what Brad said. If Texas can't average at least 3.5 yards a carry consistently with their traditional run game, Katie bar the door. It's not going to work out well. I think they'll be able to do that. And I think this game will come down to the final 7.5 minutes, that final half of the fourth quarter. It's going to be a dumb play by a punt returner, a touchdown that's called back because of a stupid hold. There's going to be a mental error, and I have no idea which team will do it. But this is a 7-point game one way or the other. Something like 28-24 will be a final score. Does somebody go for it on fourth down and make it with 3 minutes? Like, it's going to be one of those. And I live for that. I grew up on that with Texas A&M. So I think it'll be one of those contests. I just want to add one extra thing. Muhammad and all those guys in the secondary for Texas, they're good. It's time for one of them to have a special play. You and I talked about this off air. Marcel Reed does not, quote unquote, do great against zone all the time. He's hot and cold. I think he gets in his own head. Is this the game where one of those guys, they're very well schooled at UT, takes one the other direction? There is no friendlier touchdown in college football than the pick six. And you talk about suck the life out of an opposing offense. If you could get one of those, and Texas is as good at, I'm not just saying it's because you're on here, but like they got the guys to do it, but they also give up yards. They have to be able to live with, okay, tackle, go to the next play, erase it mentally. And that's hard too, because A&M is going to throw for 250 probably conservatively, would be my guess, because they got guys. Can you erase the last play if you got beat? Because A&M's receivers are going to talk. They'll back it up probably too. But can you make that one play that just sucks the life out of A&M? Because that's what happened in the South Carolina game. Like early, they had some stupid stuff happen, turnover and all that. And then, A&M made the great comeback. But being down 30-3 against Texas ain't going to work the same.
No. And, I know Arkansas was a completely different beast than Texas A&M, but Texas and Arkansas were kind of trading scores last week. And then early in the third quarter, Texas got an interception, and they turned it into a touchdown a few plays later. Not a pick six, but Texas got the ball in great field position, and it turned into a pretty easy score. And that's when the Longhorns kind of put their foot on the gas and put the Hogs out of their misery. A play like that could go a long way into helping Texas pull off an upset. Obviously, either side, right? Whoever wins the turnover battle, I think, has a great chance to win this game. The Texas secondary, Brian, has really struggled over the last month of the season. You go back to Texas's miracle comeback and overtime victory over Mississippi State and Starkville. They allowed Blake Shapen to have way too many easy throws against them. Then Diego Pavia and that crazy Vanderbilt comeback in the fourth quarter. A lot of success down the field through the air. Gunnar Stockton got pretty much whatever he wanted in that game in Athens. And again, last week, Texas did give up 37 points. A lot of it in garbage time, but still 37 points and more than 500 yards of total offense against Arkansas, who's 2-9, not 11-0 like Texas A&M. So, yeah, I think if you're the Aggies, look, Manny Muhammad, you brought him up. He's really good. He's the number one corner. He's one of the best in the conference. Texas has some experience at safeties, but the Longhorns are probably going to be starting two freshman corners. They're definitely going to be starting one, Grayson Littleton. He's been starting at nickel all season long, so like he's seasoned as you can be for a true freshman, but still a true freshman. And then Cade Phillips, 5-star recruit, but Texas has had some issues with that number 2 corner all year. Cade Phillips seemingly has taken over the reins over the last week or two. Colin Klein and Marcel Reed are going to be like, okay, yeah, number 11. We're not going to test Manny Muhammad. Yeah, both of our receivers are really good. We trust them against anybody, but let's go after the freshman corner. So, yeah, if somebody on the Texas defense can create a takeaway, that would help. But obviously, the A&M passing offense has been lights out all season long. And the Texas secondary, Brian, it was so good for the first 2 months of the year. They've sprung a couple of leaks here in the last month. They've got to do something, and I tend to agree. I don't think they're going to shut down A&M's passing attack, but can they make a couple of splash plays that can determine the outcome of this football game? That would really, really help.
It's always scary when you have freshmen out there, but this is game 12. Like Littleton's a guy, like he played in Tampa. he's seen everything like that area. He's loaded with skill guys, so he knows what it looks like. That's one guy like I'm sure they're going to try to pick on because the SWAT guys for A&M. Holy cow. I'm curious to see what games Texas plays with their coverages behind him, showing one thing pre-snap and switching because they got to get turnovers, like you said. 100% agree because A&M's run game is good. It's hard enough tackling the quarterback when he decides to run, let alone if he's got open guys. Like for those who don't remember, Marcel Reed is a freaky athlete. So that's something else. Playing zone against them is probably good. It kind of mitigates the quarterback run game a little bit, but you're probably going to give up some of those short passes. So I'm curious to see what little things they come with. Last question for you. With the playoffs and the expectations with the SEC, do you think there will be a lot of pressure for Texas and Sark next year? You have March year 2. Do you think like the playoff pressure will just be unrelenting? What do you think?
Yeah, I think there will be a lot of pressure on Steve Sarkisian. I mean, this has been a disappointing season. Now, even if the Longhorns somehow make it into the playoff, right? They obviously need to beat A&M on Friday and probably get some help from around the country. Texas bows out in the first round. That's going to be viewed as a disappointment, right? Considering the fact that this team has made it to the semifinals in each of the last 2 years, considering they started this season number 1 in the country, like even a first round exit would be a letdown, but obviously not making the playoff altogether would be a major, major letdown. So, yeah, I don't know if it's like a hot seat kind of season. I know everyone's so quick to pull the trigger on a coach these days that there will be some folks around the country wondering what type of seat Steve Sarkisian is on going into 2026. But look, the expectations at Texas are incredibly high, and you couple that with the fact that, yeah, you've got Arch Manning likely in his last year of college football. You don't want to be known as the coach who wastes the next of kin in the first family of football, right? The most anticipated high school recruit, maybe of all time. You can't have that guy for 2 years and not make what'll probably be a 16-team playoff next year. Like you can't miss a 12-teamer and then a 14 or 16-teamer next year, whatever it may be. So yeah, there will definitely be some pressure on Steve Sarkisian next year, and it'll be a long offseason for Texas again if they don't find themselves in the field of 12 in a couple of weeks.
I would agree with that. Brad, I appreciate you coming on. It was a lot of fun. Please tell everybody where they can find your work.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Always enjoy chopping it up, man. Locked On Longhorns. Find us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Check us out on social media, either Locked On Longhorns or Locked On Horns. Talking all things Texas football and all things University of Texas 24/7, 365.
I appreciate it, sir. You can find the Portal Podcast wherever you get your pods, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and everywhere else. This has been a crossover of Locked On Horns and Locked On the Portal.